La Barbie isn't quite the name that comes to mind when you hear about a former renowned drug lord and the man behind several deaths. Some say he had the demon inside him, but we believe this man was the devil himself. So in this video, we'll be talking a deep dive into the life of Edgar Valdez Villarreal, popularly known as La Barbie, to find out how a promising high school football player ended up trafficking about a ton of cocaine into the US daily. You don't want to miss this one, so sit tight and let's begin. The year was 1992, when La Barbie was arrested for the first time. He was charged with criminally negligent homicide after he ran over a middle school counselor with his truck, while going well over the speed limit down a Laredo street in Texas at just 19 years of age. However, luckily for him, he wasn't indicted. But before this arrest, who exactly was this man? Well, Edgar Valdez Villarreal was born on August 11, 1973, in Laredo, Texas, where he was also raised. Edgar Valdez was quite famous while growing up, mainly because he was a football player in a little Texas town. He got the nickname La Barbie from his American football coach at United High School because of his white skin, blue eyes, and facial features. But what was real crazy about this football player was that while he was still in high school, he had already started selling marijuana on the streets of Laredo. And upon completion of high school, he turned down an offer for his father to sponsor his college degree because, according to him, he wanted to focus on his business. However, his luck soon ran out as he was indicted on charge of distribution of marijuana. And in order to escape capture, he fled to Nuevo Laredo in Mexico, which was just across Laredo in the United States. So, how did this man go from being compared to a Ken doll to becoming a notorious drug dealer? Well, it all started after he fled the authorities in the US in 2002. He joined the Beltrán Leiva Cartel, which was then headed by the 5 Beltrán Leiva brothers, Arturo, Carlos, Alfredo, Mario Alberto, and Hector. And trust me, these brothers were responsible for just about any criminal activity that went on the area, from transporting cocaine, heroin, and marijuana into the US to engaging in money laundering, kidnapping, and even murder. Edgar quickly moved up through the ranks alongside his cousin, Fernando Valdez, due to his connections in the US. And he very quickly became the leader of an enforcement gang called Los Negros. At that time, they were engaged in a territorial dispute in the Nuevo Laredo region against the rival group called Los Zetas. Los Negros orchestrated kidnappings and recruited corrupt police officers and federal agents that gave his gang sensitive information and access to top government equipment, according to the Attorney General's office. If anything personified brutally, this gang did. In 2009, his security team stopped an assassination attempt on him by a member of the rival Los Zetas. They made a video interrogating the man and then shot him in the head. And what was truly ridiculous about this situation was the fact that he had the courage to send the video to the news outlets and even to law enforcement in the US. Now, while the group was allegedly controlled by Edgar, its affairs used to be overseen by the Beltrán Leiva Cartel. Edgar just couldn't stay out of trouble, and shortly after, the cartel leader Arturo Beltrán Leiva was killed by Mexican Marines on December 16 in 2009. He began to dispute the cartel leadership. By 2010, one faction was led by Edgar Valdez and Gerardo Alvarez, while the other was led by Arturo's brother, Hector Beltrán Leiva, and his lieutenant, Sergi Villarreal. In August 2009, it had become a full-blown battle on the streets of Cuernavaca. That same month, 4 decapitated bodies were found hanging from the bridge in Cuernavaca, with a message warning anyone helping Edgar of a similar fate. The assault wasn't completely one-sided though. Both sides engaged in gruesome tactics to ward off the other, and at the end of the dispute, over 150 deaths were directly linked to the dispute. In the midst of this turmoil, La Barbie managed to stay under the radar because the Mexican police has been searching for La Barbie since 2002. And trust me, they left no stone unturned. They raided homes he had rented and found all sorts of weapons, like grenades 780, automatic weapons, and strangely polished uniforms. It wasn't until May 2009 that Mexican authorities listed him as one of the most wanted drug traffickers, and a reward of $2.3 million was promised to anyone that valuable information on his whereabouts. In 2020, a report stated that between 2008 and 2010, Edgar Valdez Villarreal reportedly provides sensitive information to the DEA and the FBI. This raised a lot of questions about the loyalty of La Barbie. Now, according to reports, he worked as an informant for the DEA and FBI. At the same time, he was trafficking drugs. He of course kept this a secret from his bosses and partners, and even the corrupt officials that he bribed, including the former Federal Public Safety Secretary, Genaro Garcia Luna. It was eventually revealed that between 2008 and 2010, La Barbie gave sensitive information to a DEA office in San Antonio, Texas, to the FBI in McAllen, and to the FBI offices located in the United States Embassy in Mexico through a third party. I know the question on your mind is why was the collaboration with the US while still arranging for the regular shipments of cocaine into America? Could it be that he wanted to take out of his competitors? Or was La Barbie just a confused man? I wish I had the answer to that, but in his defense, his attorney Buddy Parker tried to convince the court that Edgar wanted to surrender to law enforcement, but feared it would endanger his family and put his own life in jeopardy. Now, if this statement doesn't make any sense to you, it's probably because it doesn't. It was finally discovered that La Barbie reportedly passed the information on how corrupt Mexican officials shared sensitive intelligence to members of the Sinaloa Cartel and the Beltran Leiva organization. He also witnessed corrupt officials from former President Felipe Calderón provide cartels with identities, photographs, and location of undercover law enforcement agents in Mexico. But perhaps his most important contribution was passing along a tip that allowed his former boss to get located and killed by the Mexican Marines in 2009. I guess the number one question on your mind right now is, how La Barbie was arrested? Well, according to the Mexican police, they tracked La Barbie across 5 Mexican states for over a year, and it intensified in the final months as they searched every home owned by the drug lord. They missed him on several occasions but were able to arrest several of his allies. And finally, on August 30, 2010, Edgar Valdez Villarreal was captured by the Mexican Federal Police near Mexico City following a firefight. 2 days after his arrest, a video of La Barbie was released where he could be seen describing to some interrogators how he smuggled drugs from Panama to the US and transported the cash from the US back into Mexico using trailers. Another bizarre thing La Barbie confessed in the video was that he spent over $200,000 to make a movie depicting his life. He, however, cancelled it because he feared that it might reveal too many details about himself. Well, after his arrest, his father-in-law, Carlos Montemayor González, also known as El Charro, took control of the cartel. But sadly for him, he was arrested 3 months later, on November 24, 2010. Shortly after La Barbie's arrest in August, Mexico began the process for his extradition to the US. But it wasn't until September 30, 2015, that La Barbie, alongside 12 other criminals, including former high-ranking Gulf cartel leader Jorge Eduardo Costilla Sanchez, was extradited to the US. And in June 2018, he was sentenced to 49 years in US federal prison. His release date was set to July 27, 2056. The whereabouts of La Barbie is currently unknown, as he was removed for the Federal Bureau of Prisons and was listed as not in Bob custody. Upon hearing this news, the government of Mexico began putting pressure on the US to know exactly where La Barbie was. The president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, said in a press conference that it's very strange what is going on in the United States with Mr. Villarreal, who is no longer registered among those in custody, and we want to know where he is. But not just that, he also explained how there was no reason for him to leave prison, unless Barbie had entered into some sort of agreement with the US that his government doesn't know about it. In a shocking response, the US Bureau of Federal Prisons claimed that they do not provide specific information on the status of inmates who are not in the custody of Bob for safety and security reasons. What all of this means is we might never really know where La Barbie is or what happened to him. Now, do you actually believe La Barbie wanted to surrender to law enforcement, or do you think it was all a lie? Let us know in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video, click on the next video showing on your screen for more entertainment. Come on, click on it, and I'll see you there.